Hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to Table Talks. We're here at the table. We have April Starks and we have our niece Michelle
Hello.
and myself, Martina Young, bringing different topics to the table to talk about. And we started a three-part series on relationships. And so we're coming today with part two of that, talking about relationships. And we were looking at it through the lens of the three little pigs. No offense to anybody, because it first went April suggested it. Said, hold on now. But literally, no, you just got to have a little humor, okay? But
Little humor, a little bit. I said it might be
listen,
a little corny, but hey.
It gets
you
the
got to
point
be able to laugh, okay? And so, but we were talking about how they were building their house. First, they built it out of hay. And when the wolf came, it blew it down. Then they built it out of straw. And when it came, that was blown down too. It lasted a little bit longer, but it still was knocked down. And then we know the third house was brick. But today we're looking at building the house out of straw. And the unique analogy that we want to tie into this straw, have you ever realized or have you ever seen in this? Normally I know we see it with women, but when you're really trying to grow your hair out and you do not want to cut your hair off, and that even though those ends are looking like a broom end, you still trying to hold on to it. All the while you might even have a little length, but it don't look very good. And
Mhm.
it's not growing the way that you would like it to. And it's really because you have too many split ends. And you might be saying, oh my gosh, Martina, what does split ends have to do with relationships? Well, listen, at times, just like how the split ends of our hair are the result of heat, are the result of weather, are the result of different things that our hair has been exposed to, how it will damage the ends of our hair and stop our hair from growing. At times in life, sometimes we're not able to grow healthy relationships because we have too many emotional split ends. And you know that one of the main ways to deal with split ends is you just got to cut them suckers off and start fresh. Now they do have some products that they say that will mend the split ends, but whatever it is, you have to address the split ends. And until you do, growth will be prevented. And at times in life, we are not growing, we're not building the healthy relationships that we should simply because we are not dealing with our split ends. And this is a perfect conversation for us to be having, talking about having healthy ends so that you can have healthy relationships, because Bernice and April have been friends for 80 million gabillion years. Here, I don't even know how you measure that, okay? 80 gabillion trillion years. Okay, they've been friends forever. And when I came into the atmosphere, I met both of them independently. I met them at times collectively. And let me tell you, because they had already dealt with their split ends, they didn't have no split ends going on. They welcomed me in, and never did they make me feel like a third wheel, even though I'm in third picture down here. It's okay. You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. But they never made me feel out of place. They like welcomed me in, they embraced me, and it literally was just an organic relationship. And I know that they were able to form that with me, and that I was able to form a relationship with them collectively and independently because of the health of them, the health of their hair, talking about the health of their beings. And so, you all, when we're talking about dealing with the damage ends and different things, what And also, let me add, they have a book. Do y'all have the book? Show your book. Show your book. Friends, how many of us have them? Okay.
And
Friends, ones we can depend on. So, I mean, like, they are the perfect ones to talk about this. So, you all, like, literally tell me what are some ways that we need to deal with our damage and split ends so that we can grow, so that we can have healthy relationships?
I'll start because when you were talking, I was thinking about honestly my braids. How because I put these in myself, and so my edges I want them to look good. So I took a process. I parted it, sectioned it off, and I put those black rubber bands on there because I wanted to keep it secure. And then I took at her and wrapped it around her real tight. But when you finish it, you feel it kind of pulling a little bit. And it does kind of pull your ends a little bit. Like I got a few little bumps on the side because I did it too tight. And I think about one way that we help even those edges or ends that are starting to split is sometimes you got to put, because earlier today I put like some oil,
Mm-hmm.
organ oil
Mm-hmm.
on my scalp to help those split ends and those edges, those bumps, all of that, put that oil on there. And I think when you have friendships that are able to provide like that ointment, that's the only way I can think of. They see that you know, you got some little frailty right here.
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna talk about you. I'm not going to ignore the fact that I see that right here you got some issues, but I'm gonna apply some oil to that. I'm gonna apply what's needed in the relationship. I'm a make sure that number one you're aware of it, or even giving advice for it. Hey, next time try this so it doesn't pull so tight. And I think for me, Bernice does that all the time
Mm-hmm.
throughout our relationship and throughout our life. Is times that certain things will come up, and she's going to give her input to me so that it can be better, so that I can um, deal with it or to look at it in a different way. And even like you said, to cut off some stuff,
Mhm.
because I think we have had real conversations to the point where um, she'll just tell me I gotta go, or that's I'm just telling you, you know. And I appreciate that because I want somebody that's gonna be real, that's gonna be honest. Um, and sometimes even when it takes that cutting away of
Mm-hmm.
some things, ultimately, you know, you're gonna end up being healthier in the end. So you're gonna have to be honest with it and not just keep trying to curl it
Mm-hmm.
like naturally how we do. We keep trying to curl it, and you know the ends are split and it don't last. It doesn't look, you know, it's smooth because it's just not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we want our relationships to be healthy. And I feel like we, as we put in the book or the title of the book, we have strived to be intentional. And it's not like you are intentional and then it stops. We still have to be intentional.
Mhm.
We're entering new seasons of our lives, and we still have to be intentional. And for me, I have taken the mantra lately is that I want to strive to be the friend that I want. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not going to um, say I want Vernice to do this for me and I'm not doing it for her or anyone else or for Martina, as we're developing our relationship. And I brought up the ointment because it made me think about you too. The reason we met before before we even knew each other as far as the Bernice connection is because you applied ointment to my life. Your genuineness, your authenticity, and just your love in general, not knowing me at all. We had first met, and you impacted me in such a way. I came home and told my husband, and I didn't know your name. I was like, it's Lady. I think I've shared this before, but I was like, this lady. And then when I saw you again, when I saw you again, I still didn't know your name. And I went to my husband again and I said, there's that lady. And so that's how it's easy for us to just bond because it was effortless. I think you said organic. It just it just happens. And because I think last episode, Vernice's leftover was be open. I think we've all open to accepting each other and accepting each other's differences and recognizing that it makes us more alike to have those different
Yeah.
sides of us.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a beautiful thing. I'm hoping other people will embrace that and open
Yeah.
up to it, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm. That's good. For me, we're talking about hair, and so I have a hair analogy. When you have that split end, you have an emotional connection. Growing up, my hair was always long. And through life,
And
through
thick and
process,
pretty.
and thick, and just
Oh,
beautiful.
and
And
I was thin and I'm looking at her. So I was like, I'm gonna let that go, let that go.
but she could always do her hair like I did, but that's another topic. But when my hair was long and the split ends, I never would want my beautician to cut it because I'm like, oh no, you're gonna take my hair away. But like you said, you had to cut away those split ends in order for your hair to grow. And so, yeah, being emotionally stable to say, this is my friend, this is who she is, this is who I am. And I think that we have been graced through the years with having that emotional um, balance, to be able to say, we are individuals, but we are connected. And um, we are open, like go back to the last episode, we are open to receive each other's love, and to and strong enough, stable enough to accept other people, in our relationship. And so I really believe that as an individual, being emotional, having emotional intelligence, is key to forming relationships. I'll go back. I think I mentioned it in the first episode. I don't own April, although I've been knowing her for a gabillion years, like you said. I don't own her. I value her. We can. This is my iPhone. I value my phone. And I own it. But if someone else has the same phone, I honor that. You know, um, and therefore, because I know the value of it, so I know the value of April, but I don't own her. And being emotionally intelligent enough to say, we don't have to always you don't have to always see us in the pictures, and we don't
Mhm.
have to always, you know um this is my friend, this is, to show we know our foundation is firm,
Mhm.
to be able to say, this is who she is, this is who I am, and we are open to welcome whomever in. And so, like, I can agree with April, and I'm going to say this without crying, is that you did the same for me, Martina. Is that, the reason why it's like a three-chord strand. We have that bond to be able to be emotionally sound, to accept each other as we are, period,
Yeah.
point blank. And so I think that that is very key, to accept the next person or whomever you're in relationship as they are, and be emotionally sound within yourself as an individual, and to be able to handle the weight of the relationship, because relationships change. We've been through so many we've been through so many changes. The real we what been we're do we want to say our age? We've been friends for 30 plus years.
I
Yeah.
The billion.
you know, you
Yeah.
know, all the changes that have gone on in our life. There was an agreement that we're going to accept each other, we're going to be in each other's lives, and we're going to grow, and here we are, you know. And so I think that that is key, to accept the person who for who they are, and just be emotionally sound enough, to withstand the changes, the weather, to weather the storm in your house that is built on straw. To weather the
That
storms.
that's
That's
so powerful.
mm,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
I was
because
just gonna say that's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
storms come in relationships, and you can't say, well, you know, because that happened or this, I'm done. No, how did you really value that person?
Hmm.
You know, did you really value the connection? And so, you know, having, and I believe in grace. You know, grace, giving yourself grace, and giving the relationship grace, and having open communication. You know, like April said, you know, I say, you know, say things, you know, but just having open communication.
But you do good because you say things, that I want to say. And so I appreciate that because, a lot of times you have a little more boldness than me. And I'll be like, yes, that's what I want to say anyway. So it works and it helps. It builds. Like it says, as iron sharpens iron, so does a man sharpen the countenance of his or her friend. And I think that's what happens with relationships when you can see that you're sharpening each other. You shouldn't leave the person and feel drained or feel
Right.
like, woe is me, I can't make it. You should feel some life, some energy. It should make something revive in you.
Yeah.
And that's healthy. That's healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Just like healthy hair. I
Yeah.
mean, when you think about it, and Bernice talking about the emotional side of, like, literally you have to be emotionally healthy to grow to that point. And sometimes it's getting like, where the hair is just wild, and you flipping it around and you think you got something, and I mean literally it ain't nothing but straws hanging down. I've
Friends.
done it before. I have done it, and the hairdresser's like, "Honey, this ain't nothing but a bunch of split ends. It ain't looking like nothing." And
Yeah.
sometimes we have to, and we will project that on other people. How often are people not able to enter into sound, healthy relationships because they're always putting it on other people?
Mm.
Always do this to me. People always do that. And oftentimes, sometimes what has happened is a cycle has been created in our lives. Like if I'm in a place where I am emotionally unhealthy, I've seen within myself where that lack will then draw people to you based
Mm-hmm.
on that lack. And so then the person that you've drawn into your life based on the lack, that person, because they're there for the wrong reason, is going to end up hurting and damaging you more. And there the cycle goes on again, because now you're even more damaged. And so you keep going from one connection to another. And the whole time you're operating out of a damaged emotional system. And that's why it's so important for us to take time and evaluate ourselves, and not always projected on other people. And it's gotten so that even within uh the the church, I'm gonna say, where people will even spiritualize it, and then sometimes they're saying they're discerning. That girl's spirit ain't right. The Lord showed me. And half the time it ain't that you discern nothing. It's just that your damaged ends have not been dealt with. And so, in order for us to grow, we have to, deal with our emotionally damaged parts, allow God to heal us. And as He does, it will open the door to more. And we're talking about this for both men and women. But I want to mention the fact that sometimes it is hard for women even to be like in women's ministry together,
Mm-hmm.
because instead of me operating with the purpose of glorifying God or letting His will be done through my life, sometimes you're operating out of a spirit of competition, all types of different things, where all of those damage ends are going to end up hurting the growth from the root.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though the root is here, because I got all this damage that I haven't dealt with, it becomes a hindrance. And I mean, it's so important that we do those evaluations and, do the work that is necessary to heal. And we talked about this before. I got to heal so that I can build. That house that's built out of straw is not stable and it's not going to stand. And if I'm building on my split ends, eventually all I'm going it's just be a mess. Like the emotional healing has to occur.
Yes, yes. And
Mhm.
so when we going back to the hair, cutting off your hair is healing the base, the main part. So cutting that off, and so um, this has nothing to do with April and I, but I just had some relationships that I have had to. Not, I never want to say I cut off people or discard them. That's just not my way, but I have cut them off from having certain access to me, because of the emotional instability
Yeah.
that is present,
Yeah.
and um, I am just a natural person that I get into the depth of a person. And
Hmm.
sometimes people don't want to know those truths about themselves. And that's okay. But we cannot allow that split end to remain on the healthy part of us. So then it will move up. Then then you having to get all your hair cut off because you wanted to hang on to the split ends,
Yeah,
and
you have
so
to do the big chop.
it been a big chop. The big chop has to happen, and so that is something that going to the emotional standpoint of a relationship, being aware of the value of healing as an individual, so that you won't project what's going on internally within you into the relationship. And so I agree about that healing, the healing, that if you're going to build on something, it has to be some healing that goes on.
Yeah.
And I want to hear what you're gonna say, April. But and as you were saying that, can you imagine? And I'm not saying that none of us have never dealt with, and this is not an area that we have to continue to keep conquered. Can you imagine the way that God has mixed this relationship together if we were overwhelmed by competition and insecurities? Like, can you imagine? You know
It
what I'm
wouldn't
saying?
work.
Oh, look at April and Bernice went out to lunch and they didn't ask me.
It
Or
wouldn't work.
Martina, you know what I mean? Like literally, how many people in your positions would have accused me of trying to take their friend? Anyway,
Yep.
go and say what you gonna say.
Not really. We can talk
Let's
about
talk
that.
about that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's a good subject, because that's the little girl. You know what I'm saying? That reminds me of middle school behavior. That reminds me, and so there comes some point in your life as a woman that you have to go back and allow that little girl to be healed. Or else you'll continue those behaviors that seem elementary. And so it goes back to addressing here. If then the cycle, if you keep running into these situations that seem like everyone is against you, it might be you.
Yeah.
So, and that's just being keeping it real. That it just might be me, that if I keep running into these same scenarios, I might
Hmm.
have to do some internal soul searching, you
Yeah.
know, and that's very important. And also, and can I just be like really transparent a little bit, because um I believe that there's a force that wants to break up things like the connections that us three have. And so sometimes the man be like, did they talk to each other? You know, and then I have to check myself. You know,
Mhm.
and that's just being being completely real. You know, and then
Mhm.
I'm like, what is wrong with you? You know, and so just having that conversation, constant conversation within myself,
Mhm.
and not because we are human, you know, and this I haven't done this in a long time, it's not anything new, but I just go back to early in our friendship. I would have those times where like she hanging with her a little bit too much, but that was immaturity. And so
Hmm.
as I matured, now she can hang out with whoever she because I know where I stand.
Yeah.
When you know where you stand, then everything could be kosher. Everything would be okay. You have to know where you stand and have a solid foundation within the relationship.
Hmm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Because sometimes you can't avoid when certain things come. It's just like, just living in general, certain things come, but you got to know, you got to pull it in and make a choice. Like, oh, no, I know them. You have to make a choice and not let certain things fester. Um, and that tears down the house, that splits the ends even more. So you got to make sure you just cut it, like we're talking about. You have to cut that instantly, because the tricks of the enemy are not new. He's going to try to come in different ways, and so you just have to solidify who you are. It's interesting how our conversations keep coming back around to identity, that once we get that nailed down and we know who we are, we're able to commune with other people and not have competitiveness among us as women. And I'm a proponent of believing that a lot of times when women have somewhat of like competitive vibes or negative vibes in that way, sometimes it's not even necessarily that they're jealous. I think a lot of it sometimes is the root of people not fully feeling satisfied on who they are. Like they genuinely are not probably jealous of you. It's just they haven't found their niche,
Mhm.
their purpose, their place. So then when you're flowing or when you're doing something, it just makes them feel some kind of way because they really want to feel that. Every human does,
Mhm.
so doing those checks and really assessing ourselves to that point and ask, is it really that sister?
Mm-hmm.
We in the quietness and the stillness of ourselves, is it really? And be like, it's not her. It's
Mm-hmm.
just because you know that you need to be doing this, or that you have a desire for this, or that you're seeking this, and it's really not about that person. And that'll help us get healthy and
Mhm.
get those split ends taken care of as well when we're able to do that. And I want to mention just real quickly, I noticed that even on that second house on the Three Little Pigs story, not only did they use straw, but some sticks was in there too.
Mhm.
So sometimes, people want to try to bring in, the sticks, but put your weapons down. We don't have time for all that. Put the sticks down. They don't build nothing. It's not gonna work. All that stuff, like Bernie says, immaturity. We're women. We're not little girls anymore.
Yeah.
We're women,
Yeah. Yeah.
grown women.
Yeah.
So heal those spaces so that we can really go forth in healthy relationships and support each other truly and build each other up and push each other to do the things that we are called to do, and we can come to the table like we're doing. We
Mm-hmm.
want each
Yeah.
woman to come to the table because there's a seat for you at the table.
Yeah.
It's not divisive. Ah, well, she can't come.
Right.
Who does that? We
Right.
don't want that. That's not what we're trying to build. So I'm grateful for our connection so we can genuinely show what it looks like. Because one thing that Bernice and I have always had, just to share some insight into our relationship, is that we never want to falsify stuff. That's why, people may wonder, or whatever they saying behind the scenes, whatever, of, well, we don't see her at this, or they ain't together all the time. I'm not even like it anyway. And we both the same way. Like, I don't have to post pictures every week with her to prove to them that she's my friend. Look, we there when you don't see nothing. If needed, it's not to put a post to front for anybody. So some people need to get out of that facade relationships. Have real relationships.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need the facade ones. You don't have to
Yeah.
know every time we go to lunch. You don't have.
Yeah.
But it was funny. We laughed together because at some point we was like, "Man, we don't never take pictures."
Right.
People don't know we done been to lunch 50 times, and we don't show one picture, and in their minds they're thinking, "Man, they don't hang out that much."
Yeah.
So it's not for a front for people. It's to have genuine, true relationships, and you know
Yeah.
where it stands. And
Yeah.
sometimes you do have what I call seasons of departure, where you're just going in different directions, or y'all may be taking care of different things. I don't know, but it's just for a season. But you never lose the root and the foundation that you have built together, because it's a choice. Okay, nobody can come to me and say, Martina, this and that. At this point, I've made a choice. I don't care what you say. Do
Mm-hmm.
what you got to do. And I might fight you. No,
I heard a
Right.
little fight streak come out.
look, no, she is my friend, no matter what. So for me, when I make a decision, I don't care what nobody says. That's my final answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I just think about going back to the Three Little Pigs. The house that was built out of straw had some sticks, and it looked like it was sturdy. And so a lot of people who, are posting these pictures and me and my bestie or whatever, those things like that, is it really a solid house? Is it really firm? Does it really have substance enough to be able to handle, just going back to a little transparency, April and I, we had to have a hard conversation, and I had to admit I took your friendship for granted, and I had to be able to say that to her when she asked me a question, and I had to like think, why did I do that? And it was just that I assumed, because she's my friend, and I had to be okay and have the strength, to say that, you know, I took her for granted. I took our friendship for granted. And, and whatever that I didn't know how she was going to react. I had some feel, I knew I know her, but because she appreciates honesty, and that was my honest answer at that time. But it hurt, for me to even say I took my friend for granted, and tears flew, came at, it was a snotty nose type of conversation, but it was an open communication that happened, and that is very important, to be able to have those difficult conversations. That is not going to be easy, it's not. But if we can get through this conversation, I build I do believe that uh made us stronger. It
Mhm.
made our relationship a lot stronger, in having that, me being vulnerable enough to express my fault, and then her being open enough to accept, to say, okay, I see your point of view, and we come to an understanding. And so that is very important in building relationship, is open communication, and then coming to an understanding. And then, let's move on. I kind of saw her face, because I know that she probably forgot about it, because she was like, what is she talking about? And so, and then forget about it,
Yeah,
don't keep
keep bringing
bringing
it
it
back.
up. You remember that one time you took me for granted? You know,
Yeah.
have the conversation, forget about it, and keep moving on, because that person came to you in an honest time and an honest moment, and shared their heart. Don't keep throwing it up in their face.
That's
That's
right.
not that's not cool. You know.
Hmm. Well, that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
unhealthy, and so we deal with it. We communicate, and we keep going. But people don't want to have the hard conversation. But it's really a healing balm. So you have to have the hard conversations
Hmm.
at times. Even writing the book. I mean, you brought up the book. Even writing the book for myself, to share transparency. I had a moment. So what we do, we take a moment and make it the person's
Just.
whole book. No,
Hmm.
that was just one page in the book. We make it all the chapters. And so we came into an agreement. We met at a coffee shop. We went through the book. We got our things situated that we wanted to add in there as notes for people. And we actually, I felt like it's like we made a pact. We good, you good. We're not putting out nothing that's not authentic.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we keep our relationship healthy. So that it's not, no, we're not doing the fronting and faking.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Fronting and faking and your hair need
Your
raking.
hair need
Remember
raking.
that?
Going back to hair. Going
It's
back to hair.
soft. It's soft.
Fronting and faking and your hair need raking. That's good. That brings us back around to them split ends.
Yeah.
You can't be fronting and faking with healthy relationships. If you want them to be healthy, we're not gonna fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am telling you guys, these conversations go by so quickly. As we're and so that's why you got to make sure, because we're going to continue this over into a part 3 on relationships. So make sure that you watch out for the next episode. And as we draw it in, one, we want to remind you that it does tie back to identity. When we know who we are, then we stop trying to prove things to other people. And oftentimes, an unsettled identity spills over to other areas of our lives, even into relationships. And the beauty of this series on relationships is that God birthed table talks out of us sitting at a table talking about relationships.
Relationships.
And I was thanking the two of them for just the way that they have so embraced me. And I feel like now they've known each other a billion years. I feel like I've known them a billion years. And so
Yeah.
God is able to do that where he can actually engraft you in. And just the awesome thing about it is that God brings people into our lives for purposes and reasons, and we're able to build each other up. We're able to encourage each other. And I can tell you, and I said I'm not gonna cry, but like these two women of God here, I appreciate so much, because even as when not having known them for millions of years, that they tapped in when I went through a season with the passing of my brother. They would send me a message. They would reach out to me separately, and it would always hit at a time where I could just really use that emotional support. And oftentimes when you first go through things, people sometimes initially they're there, but they forget about you. But along the way, God would just allow them to be such supports. And it's important to have relationships, because as we support one another, as it talks about in Ecclesiastics, that when I'm alone, if I fall by myself, there's nobody there to lift me up. But when I have those that are connected with me, God can use them as a support system to lift me up. And I can't remember if that's Ecclesiastics 2, 3, 4. Charge it to my heart, not my memory, or maybe charge it to my, I don't know. But anyway,
It's in there.
it's in there. But I mean, like literally. So we just want to encourage you in that this applies not only in friendships, But even in family relationships,
Mm.
that as some of our families are seeking to heal and to grow, that it takes dealing with the damaged ends. And for far too long, many families have suffered in silence because of refusal to have the hard conversations. And God is able, through a conversation and being open, to open the door of healing and to break cycles of adversity that have gone through with families. So we thank you all for joining in. Before we close out, we're going to have April and Bernice to give us their takeaway, their leftover, and then we'll be looking for you to join us again. April.
My takeaway is actually something you just said. I wrote it down. An unsettled identity spills over into our relationships. So that's my
Mm.
takeaway, and my leftover for those who are viewing and listening. Um, and I pray for healing. There's healing coming to your house. There's healing coming to you as an individual. That your emotional intelligence, your emotional balance that is needed for yourself to love yourself first as an individual is coming to you. Take that with you. That's your leftover. Healing is coming to you, um, even in the next 7 days. So when we come for this third episode, and please join us, you're going to be solid. And we're going to share that with you next time, as God is blessing you through these 7 days. And we're going to be praying for you.
Yes. April, sometimes April and I, we say we have twin power because that was going to be my leftover for you is the emotional healing that needs to take place. I just want to say this to you to self check yourself before you wreck yourself in your relationships. And so take the time to heal and do an internal evaluation of yourself because it's not always them. It just might be you. And that's okay if you're willing to do the work and be open to receive the healing that God wants you to have and that you will receive. Just as April said, the next 7 days, God is going to heal and healing is coming your way, but be open to receive it because there are so many blessings on the other side of that healing. I can give you a testimony, but we're about to end. And so self check yourself before you wreck yourself in your relationships. Is my put it in the microwave, warm it up, and eat it up in a late night snack.
Amen. So thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week. So long from Table Talks, where there's a seat for you at the table.
Mhm.
Peace.